We're holding now between Tzom Gedalia and Yom Kippur, the Aser Simei Tshuva. A while back, we spoke, I believe it was here in the morning Kollel, about somebody who's not fasting, can he get an ALIYA? It was Negeya yesterday, Tzom Gedalia, and of course it's Negeya for Yom Kippur, Abba Aleinu L'Tova. There are people that don't fast, they can't fast. Could you give them an ALIYA? Might be a little bit Negeya, you know. Could they get an ALIYA? So, just real briefly, a tainus in general. The Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Tovkuf Samach Vav, Si Vav. Say the lashon inside. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Yesh Mi She'omer. Yesh Mi She'omer doesn't mean that it's a machlokes. Yesh Mi She'omer means that it's a chiddush of a rishon that the Shulchan Aruch is bringing, that it's not like a Gemara, it's not like all the rishonim say it, it's a chiddush. Yesh Mi She'omer, says the Shulchan Aruch, she'ein oimed likris b'Torah b'tainas sibur mi shelo yisana. Somebody that's not fasting can't get an ALIYA. The Magen Avram says that if the tainus is on a Monday or a Thursday, like let's say yesterday Tzom Gedalia was on a Thursday, so then for Shacharis, since anyways he's a chayvus kriyas HaTorah, so maybe you could get an ALIYA. In other words, the reason why the person can't get an ALIYA who's not fasting, because the kriyas HaTorah is here because of the fast day. And if you're not a person's not fasting, he's not part of the tainus, maybe he can't get an ALIYA.
Is it morning from Mincha or it's even by Shacharis?
1 second. So it's very good on let's say this past Tzom Gedalia Thursday, or any tainus that falls out on a Monday and a Thursday, Shacharis, that anyways there would have been kriyas HaTorah. It's true, Taka, that the kriyas HaTorah is a kriyas HaTorah of a tainus, but the chayvas kriyas HaTorah would have been there anyways. The Mela, you could get an ALIYA. That's like the Magen Avram. Even though the kriya is a kriya of Vayechal, but the chiv of kriyas HaTorah would have been there anyways. As opposed to if the tainus is during the week, not on a Monday or a Thursday. So Mela, if there wouldn't be a tainus, there would be no kriyas HaTorah. Now there is kriyas HaTorah. The kriyas HaTorah is only for the tainus. If the person's not fasting, he can't get an ALIYA. And the same would be mincha also. Mincha, if a person's not fasting, you can't get an ALIYA.
If someone's fasting in the morning though, I mean he only plans on breaking his tainus.
Good shaila. You want to know if somebody's only fasting part of the tainus, he knows he's going to break his fast later. That's a discussion for itself. We spoke about it in that shiur, and I'm really not going to focus in this morning's shiur tainus in general. We're going to focus on Yom Kippur. But good point, in tainus in general is a full shiur. The only reason I brought in the Shulchan Aruch is just to recap, and you'll soon see why I brought in this Magen Avram as well also, but we're really not going into Hilchas tainus in general. If you can get an ALIYA, the Shulchan Aruch says you can't. The Magen Avram says on a Monday and a Thursday Shacharis you could, not the other days, not Mincha. L'maaseh the Magen Avram, the Chaim brings that the Achronim argue on the Magen Avram, it's not so pashut. It's not so pashut that a person can get an ALIYA even on a Monday and a Thursday Shacharis. Yeah, it's a shaila. Sivkot in Yotes, in the Mishnah Berurah, I'm a Magen Avram, the Dafka b'Mincha b'Shachris, Mutal Alois, Al Kapanim on a Monday and Thursday, V'yesh Machrim Shemafak, it's a machlokes. He says, of course, if somebody was called up, of course he could be Oyla. Like I just said, we're not going to be focusing on a general tainus. Of course, there's a lot to talk about. He brought up very well what happens if a person knows for sure he's going to break his fast later. What happens if a person's not sure if he's going to make it till the end of the tainus. That's a good discussion. We're going to go right into Yom Kippur. What happens if somebody is not fasting Yom Kippur? He cannot fast. He can't fast, and maybe he's not allowed to fast, and the Ratzon Hashem is that he shouldn't fast. He's not fasting. Could the person get an ALIYA? And it's negeya, it's mamash negeya. It's mamash negeya, a person that could be a chayla and fakert, he feels that he wants to be oyla, it should be a schus for him, or it's an older person, a respectable person, a chashiv, a person, a rosh yeshiva, a rav, he's old, he's not fasting. That's the reality, he's not fasting. Could he get an aliyah? So, the first thing it's important to note, the Marchesha says that if somebody's eating shiurim, that's not considered eating and he could get an aliyah. So the whole discussion that we're going to speak about today, for the next couple of minutes, is only somebody that has to eat fully. Somebody that's just eating shiurim, meaning to say is only a little bit at a time, like we spoke in previous shiurim over here, that the din inui ha-Torah is when you eat enough to calm you down. If you eat a little bit that doesn't relax you, just a little to stay alive, that's not where the Torah asers. It's a issa de Rabbana, it's a issa Torah, issa de Raisa, sorry, issa de Raisa. It's chatzishid, it's issa de Raisa, but it's not the inui ha-mura ba-Torah for the chi of karas. Yeah, issa de Raisa, but al koponim over there, Zokta Marcheshes, if a person eats only minimal, the say shiurim, of course the eat shiurim also is a separate discussion, when a person could avad be a doctor, but if a person eats shiurim, he could still get an aliyah. What happens if a person has to eat fully? Yes, he eats fully. The doctor says he has to eat to be able to, for his to stay alive, kuch nefesh, whatever he has to, the Rav says he has to eat. Could he get an aliyah? So, we just mentioned before the Magen Avram that even on a regular fast day, if the fast day is on a Monday or a Thursday, for Shacharis you could get an aliyah. So this year, Yom Kippur Haba Leinu L'Tov is on a Thursday. So technically, or klor, Api the Magen Avram, he could get an aliyah Shacharis. We did say it's a machloikis, these achroinim shemafakbakin, but akapanol fira Magen Avram, this year, when Yom Kippur falls on a Thursday, which is taka only vaite when Erev Pesach Shechali is Peshabas, that Yom Kippur is on a Thursday. So this is a very uncommon thing, Yom Kippur to be on a Thursday, though Yom Kippur could also fall on a Monday. So this discussion of somebody not fasting to get an aliyah on Yom Kippur, Shachris, al pi the Magen Avram, will be negeya even on a Monday, but al kapana for this year to get an aliyah, al pi the Magen Avram, he can get an aliyah because for Shachris.
Doesn't matter which aliyah? Meaning, because normally we have 3 aliyahs on a Monday, Thursday. If it's Shabbos, then I'd say for sure it doesn't make a difference because we'd have 7 aliyahs, we'd add on. But Yom Kippur, you're going to have, I think it's...
Yom Kippur 6 aliyahs.
6.
So if Yom Kippur is, it's interesting, you're saying, it's interessant point, you bring up interesting.
Maftir is his own thing, but I'm saying he should need to get Shlishi. If he's
the first 3 aliyahs,
yeah.
interesting ha'ara, interesting.
No,
I hear.
The fear of Christian Yom Kippur is the same.
1 second, what you're saying is just for the people that are listening to the recording, you're saying that, based off the Magen Avram, that you could be oila on a Monday and a Thursday, Shachris, because it's anyways a chayvus kriyas HaTorah. So you're wondering maybe only the first 3 aliyahs.
I would say Maftir
Dilma, these are chayvus akriya, so you're part of these are chayvus akriya anyways. But it's interesting, Shaila, could you only be oila maybe just the first 3 aliyahs, like every Monday and a Thursday? What were you saying, Rabbi Yitzchak?
It sounds like maybe the chiva of the Yom Kippur kriya was different than a stam tainus. It's the same chiva.
Oh, very good. That's what we're going to get to. Very good. Gavaldik. Very good point. We're mamash going to get to that, to see that could be Yom Kippur is completely different. But so far, we want to know, could a person be oila on Yom Kippur? And we said it could be al pi the Magen Avram of every tainus on a Monday and Thursday. It could be oila, but that would be Shachris when it's a Monday and a Thursday. The Chassam Sofer has a tshuva, the following tshuva. He writes, he says, this is his tshuva is actually not for Yom Kippur, it's for Tisha B'Av, but we'll see it's applicable, maybe even a Kol Shkein, but it's applicable for Yom Kippur as well. The Chassam Sofer starts the tshuva like this. He says that this year I'm not well and I'm going to need a drink on Tisha B'Av. My Talmidim are going to want to give me an aliyah, Tisha B'Av mincha. So he wants to know, am I going to be able to get an aliyah? That's how he starts the tshuva. Zok the Chassam Sofer, and he answers, yes, I could get an aliyah. And he says the following. He says 3 reasons why he could get the aliyah, Tisha B'Av by mincha. One of the reasons we actually mentioned in a recent shir when we spoke about Inui. The first, he says, is the following. This that the Shulchan Aruch says that a person who's not fasting cannot get an aliyah, he says, be'etzem it's a chiddush. It's not a Gemara. It's a Rishon that says it, the Marik. And he says the Marik is talking about not every tainus tzibur. The Marik is talking about tainus that the tzibur brought on themselves. Maybe bahab, or even let's say these are a tzara, these are tzara. And the tzibur brought on a tainus. Over there, if the person's not fasting, he's not part of it. Masha Enkein a tainus tzibur, for an example, Tzayim Gedalia yesterday, even if a person's not fasting, it's still Tzayim Gedalia. If a tzibur brings on a tainus, okay, so if the person's not fasting, he's not part of the tzibur. Maybe he has a good reason, but he's not part of the tzibur. The Dalid, the other tanesim, Tzayim Gedalia, it's still a tainus Tzayim Gedalia. The person happens to be can fast. Furthermore, in this first, he expands a bit more and he says, not only is the person part of the fast, even if he's not fasting, he's totally part of the fast. If a person could get away just eating, not drinking, so then he's not allowed to do both. And if a person just needs to eat one time in the morning, it's not like, okay, once he ate already, it's over. He's still included in the tainus, and since he's included in the tainus, you see that the tainus is a tainus that's shaykh to him. So that's reason number one. Says the Chassam Sofer, even though I'm going to have to drink on Tisha B'Av, I'll still be able to get an aliyah. Just on this note, on the first shot in the Chassam Sofer, the Aruch HaShulchan, Lamaisa says, yearly says the Aruch HaShulchan, this is Negei Amol if it's on a regular tainus, if you call a person up and he's not fasting, the Aruch HaShulchan says that the din of the Shulchan Aruch, he doesn't say, he says yearly, that a person that's not fasting can't be oila l'Torah is only on a fast that's not a kavua diga tainus, but a tainus like tainus Esther, or Shavasa B'Tamas, Tzayim Gedalia, you could be oila. So Mela, reason number one says the Chassam Sofer, you could be oila. The reason why he could be oila is because it's be'etzem a tainus anyways. This reason number one is not only for Tisha B'Av, it's negei for all tanesim, says the Chassam Sofer, you could be oila. But I don't know if Lamaisa the Chassam Sofer says any other tainus you could Lamaisa be oila, because he has other reasons that are applicable, yes, only for Tisha B'Av. Reason number two, he says the reason why I'll be able to get an aliyah on Tisha B'Av even though I'm not fasting is because Tisha B'Av in particular, I'm part of Tisha B'Av. A person's part of Tisha B'Av even if he's not fasting. Why not? Because you have the other 4 Yinuyim. Somebody that's not fasting on Tisha B'Av, he's still asa b'nilas asandal, berachitza, so he's still part of Tisha B'Av. Which obviously this reason is negei for Yom Kippur also. If a person, the Chassam Sofer is speaking about Tisha B'Av, but the same reason that he says why for Tisha B'Av he could be oila, Yom Kippur would be the same thing also. A person could be oila because Lamaisa, he's part of Yom Kippur because he has the other Yinuyim, even if he's eating. And then he says a third reason why he'll be able to be oila on Tisha B'Av, and this is like what you mentioned. Tisha B'Av is different than the other Tanesim. Other Tanesim, the Kriya is mitzad the fast. So Mamela, Dr. Marik, the Shulchan Aruch, that if a person's not fasting, be'etzim there's no Kriya for him, Mamela he can't get an aliyah. Ma'ashenkin Tisha B'Av, there's a Kriya mitzad the YOM. If you want to call it the Yom Tiv, a YOM de Pranusa, right, it's Ikri Moyed, there's a Kriya on Tisha B'Av mitzad the YOM. And who then, of course, maybe even Kolshkin came Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, there's a Choyva Sakriya mitzad the Yom of Yom Kippur. The Kriya Satayr of Yom Kippur is a Chiyav, like Shabbos, like Yom Tiv. Like the Chassam Sofer says, Shabbos, if somebody fasts on Shabbos, a Tainus Chaloim, are you going to say that if he's fasting, that he doesn't need Kriya Satayr? Avanda, he's Kriya Satayr. These din Kriya Satayr mitzad the Yom of Shabbos Kodesh. The same thing, these Kriya Satayr mitzad Tisha B'Av, and these Kriyas HaTorah mitzad Yom Kippur as well. So Mela says the Chassam Sofer, for 3 reasons I say that I could be Oila Tisha B'Av for Mincha. So if we would stop right here, we began the Shaila this morning, Shiur, could a person be Oila Yom Kippur? Somebody that's eating on Yom Kippur, could he be Oila? Al Pi the Chassam Sofer, the answer would be yes. A person could be Oila Shachris or Mincha. And Reb Shlomo Kluger spells it out clearly. Sai Tisha B'Av, Oymar Ani, he says, and Sai Yom Kippur, a person could be Oila LaTorah if he's not fasting. Obviously, if he's not fasting, because he can fast. Zokt Reb Shlomo Kluger, it's Ke'en the Chassam Sofer, but a little bit, call it maybe a 4th reason or a Me'en. He says, every fast, the tainus is l'tshuva, but it's a yom tainus. You fast ima'or l'tshuva. So if you're not fasting, you're not connected to the tainus. That's what we're saying the whole time. It says Masha'en came Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, even if a person's not fasting, the essence of Tisha B'Av is avelis. A aval is mechuyev v'avelis, even if he's not fasting. So Tisha B'Av, the avelis of Tisha B'Av. Before we said a different reason. We said these the other inuyim. We said he's still part of the moyed, the pranusa. He says the reason why a person's still connected to Tisha B'Av, because Rabbi said Tisha B'Av, a person is still meshach shaykhet ravelis. If a person's not fasting, could he listen to music? I'm giving the music as a marshal, but I'm saying the avelis, even not the inuyim stam, the inyonei Tisha B'Av are still applicable. Why? Because Rabbi said it's Tisha B'Av. So the mainly can be oila l'Torah because the kriyas HaTorah is mitzah Tisha B'Av. Says Reb Shlomo Kluger the same as Yom Kippur also. Yom Kippur, even if a person's not fasting, he's still shaykh to the Inyonei HaYom. What's the Inyonei HaYom? First of all, he says he's the Issam Malacha on Yom Kippur. So that's even if he's not fasting. V'oid, besides the Issam Malacha, v'oid, these the Chelek HaKappara. Now, Shrudi is a machloikis in the Gemara of somebody, do you need to have the tainus l'kapara? One mandama says that if a person doesn't fast, he doesn't have a kapara. But he says, everybody agrees that if a person can fast, because he can't, avadi you have the kapara even without fasting. So Mamela, a person is shaykh to Yom Kippur, to the Inyonei HaYom. Inyonei HaYom is a malacha, even if he's not fasting. The kapara. So Mamela, Zakt of Shlomo Kluger, clearly a person could be oila on Yom Kippur.
Do we see that it's for all the Yom? That if someone doesn't keep them, then he doesn't get the kapara? All 5?
I don't know offhand. I don't remember offhand. If a person...
Yeah.
The shayla is a person has to be bitzoim. Does a person have to have all 5 Yiduyim to have the kapara? It's a shayla we have to look into. I don't know. So what do we have so far? So far we have the Chassam Sofer and Reb Shlomo Kluger. The Chassam Sofer is talking about Tisha B'Av. Reb Shlomo Kluger already says clearly even Yom Kippur that a person could be oila. My the pshitale to the Chassam Sofer that you could be oila on Yom Kippur. A person could be oila even if he's not fasting. Mesapkalei Reb Kiveger. Reb Kiveger is mesopik. Reb Kiveger's yard site is coming up now. Yud Gimel Tishrei. That's Sunday, not this Sunday, but Sunday in a week. Kiveger was nifta in 1837. Zokter Kiveger, Shachris, you could get an Aliyah. Why? Because Shachris, I think like you mentioned, these are din Kriyas HaTorah, it's a Yom Tif. Shachris Yom Kippur, you could get an Aliyah. So that, the takeaway is, in the morning there's no machlekes. Yom Kippur is clear, a person could get an Aliyah. But Zokter Kiveger, Mincha, I'm mesopik. What's Reb Kiveger's safek? Reb Kiveger wants to know the Kriyas HaTorah of Mincha Yom Kippur. Is it a Yom Tif Diga Kriya? What does it mean a Yom Tif Diga Kriya? Just like Shabbos, we lane Shabbos by Mincha. Maybe Yom Kippur, the Kriyas HaTorah of Mincha is a Yom Tif Diga Kriya, I'm a Meila, Yom Tif, even if he's not fasting, he could be Oila. Or is it a Tainus Diga Kriya? Like every Tainus we lane by Mincha, that's for sure a tainus de gekriya. Yesterday we learned by Mincha Vayechal, it was Medin tainus. Dr. Kivege, if the kriyas HaTorah by Mincha Yom Kippur is a tainus de gekriya, then the person cannot be oila. So my the mesapkele to my the pshitele to the Chassam Sofer, yes, to be able to be oila. The Chassam Sofer is talking about Tisha B'Av, but if he says you could, Yom Kippur would be no different, not worse than Tisha B'Av. Reb Kivege is mesapek. But Reb Kivege, this is Reb Kivege in Tshuvas. Reb Kivege made a mafteach for his Tshuvas, and in the mafteach, Reb Kivege says that my whole tshuva, my whole suffix, is only when Tisha B'Av falls during the week. Yom Kippur, I'm sorry. When Yom Kippur falls during the week. Last year, Yom Kippur fell on Shabbos. So Reb Kivege, over there, I have no suffix. For sure, the person could be oila for mincha. Why? Because Medin Shabbos, there would have been a kriyas HaTorah. You could be oila mincha. But in the week, he's mesupik. My the pshitele to the Chassam Sofer that somebody that's not fasting can be oila, shachris and mincha. My the mesapkele, and it's Reb Kivege is mesupik mincha. Zok the emek bracha. This mincha nidin of the Reb Kivege that's a suffix. Zok the emek bracha. I have a machlokes rishonim. I'm a foolish machlokes rishonim. He really asks on Reb Kivege. Reb Kivege is mesupek. It's a machlokes rishonim. I'm not going to go into detail in the Gemara. I want to try to finish shortly. But the Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Chavdala, the Gemara says, Hamafter b'novi by Shabbos b'mincha. If it's Yom Tif, you don't mention Yom Tif. And the reason for that is because mi goram for the Haftorah to come, only Shabbos, not Yom Tif. Now, Tosfos already, Megillah speaks about it's not our minhag to have Haftorah by Shabbos mincha. I don't want to go into the discussion, b'chlal. But Zokt the Mordechai, on this Gemara, he says, even though Yom Tif, Shechalias b'Shabbos by mincha, you don't mention Yom Tif because he's no mafter. Yom Kippur, you do mention by the Haftorah, the Birchas Haftorah, you do mention Yom Kippur. You do mention Yom Kippur. Why? Because it's coming out Yom Kippur. We actually don't paskin like that. The Ramah says we don't. The Ramah. But Dr. Mordechai, you mention because Yom Kippur's goyrim that it should come. However, this is in a later place that Goyes Mordechai brings from Rabbeinu Shmuel that says no. That Yom Kippur by Mincha we do not mention by Haftorah, Ala Torah, Val Avoida, Val Yom Kippurim that we don't mention. Why not? He says, Zakta Rabbeinu Shmuel, because the Kriya and the Haftorah by Mincha of Yom Kippur doesn't come out Yom Kippur, it comes out Satainus. Which means Rabbeinu Shmuel is saying that the Kriyas Haftorah, the Kriyas HaTorah, the Haftorah of Mincha Yom Kippur is coming. Why? Is here out Satainus. So Zok the Emek Bracha, this machlokes rishonim, if you do mention Yom Kippur by Mincha or not, the machlokes is what's this Kriyas HaTorah of Mincha? Is the Kriyas HaTorah a Yom Kippur Digadin? Or is it a Tainus Digadin? The Hainu what Reb Kivege was Mesupek and if you could get an Aliyah, if it's a Tainus Digadin, no, and if it's Yom Kippur Digadin, yeah. This Safag Reb Kivege, Zok the Emek Bracha, is a machlokes rishonim. So, just to pull out one piece, even the whole Shiur, let's say, is not negeya, everybody's fasting. It's stabak a shmak a shaila, Yom Kippur by Mincha, you come back after the break to Kriyas HaTorah. What is this Kriyas HaTorah? Is it a Yom Kippur to get Kriyas HaTorah, or is it a Tainus to get Kriyas HaTorah? But just to be meyashiv Reb Kivege, the Rabbeinu Shmuel says Rabbeinu Shmuel says that it's a tainus to get kriya. Lamaisa, if you look inside in the Hagoyah Smartcha Rabbeinu Shmuel, I looked it up clearly, he doesn't say that the kriyas HaTorah is midin tainus. The Haftorah is midin tainus. Every tainus by Mincha, we read Haftorah yesterday, that's midin tainus. However, the kriyas HaTorah could be yes midin Yom Kippur. So memela like this, which means, like someone broke up before, which aliyas, a kohen that's not fasting or a Levi would be able to get aliyah kivega safek, because maybe the kriyas HaTorah is Yom Kippur to get in. Shlishi, he will not be able to get because the Haftorah is a tainus to get in. Yashiv Reb Kivega. Lamaisa, the Goyin on that Ramah that says that we do not mention by Mincha, in Haftarah of Mincha, Mafta Yoyin of Yom Kippur, we don't mention Yom Kippur. So the Goyin brings this Rabbeinu Shmuel and says the words inside in the Goyin, because the Kriyas HaTorah and the Mafta is a din tainus, which would mean from the Goyin that the whole Kriyas HaTorah of Mincha is a tainus to get in. So Mamela, just to conclude, and with this I'm going to end, we have a three-way machlokes lagabi mincha. This Yom Kippur abal leinu l'toiva. Shachris, there is no shaila, the person could be oila, even if a person's not fasting, because lamaisa, these are kriyas HaTorah, it's medin yomtiv. The Chaim Sofer said other reasons also, but it could be oila, these are chayvus kriya medin yomtiv. Mash'en came by mincha, we have three shitas. We have the sheet of the Chaim Sofer and Shlomo Kluger that the person could yes be oila, any of the aliyas. We have Reb Kiveger that's misupik. That's misupik if a person could be oila. It's a suffix. It's a suffix. Is the kriyas HaTorah tainus to get kriya, or is it a yomtiv to get kriya? And then we had the Mikbracha says it's a machlekes Rishayim but al kapanim, and the Bir Agra l'chayra comes out clearly how he's machriya based off the Ramah, that a person cannot be oila because the whole kriya is a kriya. The whole kriya is a kriya of a tainus. Have a wonderful Shabbos, a Gemar Chesima Tova, and of course we should all be zoiche, the Makayim, the Tzivi Aboira of Inui, to be able to fast. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Yeah.